welcome to Gamecock Pod Live.
For the next 3 to 4 years, I'll be committed to the University of Gamecock.
This is Rogers again to the 25, 20, 15, 10. Rogers scores! Jackie Bradley Jr. delivered for the Gamecocks. Lost it up, looking for Kelly. Touchdown! Can you believe it?
And South Carolina is sending shockwaves through the SEC.
Frederick plays it in at the buzzer. That's a win! Unbelievable! I don't believe it!
And now, live from Studio 54 of the Gamecock Pod Studios, here's the Cockfather himself, Keith Alsep.
All right, everybody, welcome into Gamecock Pod Live for March the 26th. We are in the middle of the madness as the Sweet 16 for the men get underway later on today, and Friday for women's basketball. So in just a few minutes, we will be joined by my good friend of the show at Go Gamecocks and the state, Jordan Kaye, will join us. Obviously, there has been a lot going on since I have been in Las Vegas, enjoying the sports book at Caesar's Palace. I actually was able to get a SIG on my beeper while I was out there. Did not need the phone bank, and found out it was not the original Caesar's Palace. All right. Everybody's bracket is busted. There are no perfect brackets left. Florida went down. A lot of upsets, a lot of amazing buzzer beaters thus far in the men's tournament. We'll talk about that in just a few minutes, along with one of our title sponsors of today's show, mybookie.ag. All right, so over the weekend, I was in Las Vegas Thursday for some reason. Thursday felt like Friday, Friday felt like Saturday, Saturday felt like Sunday, and then Sunday felt like Sunday. And so I thought it was Sunday, but on Saturday, athletic director Jeremiah Donati and former head baseball coach Paul Mainieri announced that it was best that Mainieri step away and retire from Gamecock Baseball after losing a midweek game to Charlotte and then getting shellacked 22-6 by Arkansas. Mainieri is out. Monty Lee back in as the interim head coach at South Carolina. Gamecocks could have won the second game on Saturday. A throwing error by KJ Scobie at shortstop with 2 outs in the ninth took the game to extra innings, and Arkansas, fourth-ranked Arkansas, beat the Gamecocks 3-2 in 10 innings. The Gamecocks did win on Sunday 9-4. We will dive into all of the baseball news with Jordan Kaye and dissect the next steps. But folks, there's still 32 games remaining in this season. Mainieri departs 40-40 at South Carolina, and former pitching coach Terry Rooney, while still on the staff, is much like assistant JAG attorney Sam Weinberg, in A Few Good Men, where he said, I've absolutely no responsibilities whatsoever here. So we'll dive into all of that and more with Jordan Kaye. Softball continues to struggle. I did not see this coming. I thought after last year's inaugural team under Ashley Chastain Woodard and the success that they had, the transfer portal, the recruits that were coming in, they would pick up right where they left off, but probably need to win at least 2 out of 3 this weekend against number 12 Mississippi State, or they're going to be out of the top 25 altogether. Getting skunked by Clemson 8-0 last night in Columbia. The men's basketball staff shakeup has started as earlier in the week, or maybe as over the weekend. Every day seems to be blending together right now. Lamont Paris announced that he was moving on from assistant coach Eddie Shannon. Shannon, former point guard at Florida, worked with Paris at UT Chattanooga and at South Carolina. Gamecocks 13-19 and 4-14 in SEC play. Do you realize if you take out outside of the 23-24 season, Lamont Paris, the other 3 years since he's been head basketball coach at South Carolina, is 10-44 in the Southeastern Conference. They went 13-5 in 23-24, the team that advanced to the NCAA tournament, got knocked out in the first round by Oregon. He's also averaged 20 losses in 3 of his 4 seasons at South Carolina. We will dive into all of that with Jordan Kaye as well. Women's basketball, of course, propping up the entire athletic department right now. South Carolina crushed Southern Cal in a rematch of South Carolina's 79-62 win over the Trojans in Los Angeles with a 101-61 beatdown of South Carolina. That was on Monday afternoon, at least for me, on the West Coast time, to advance to their 12th straight Final Four. 12 straight. Let that sink in. And in 2019-2020, when South Carolina was, I believe, 33-1, undefeated in SEC play, they went through the SEC like a hot knife through butter in the SEC tournament. They were the number 1 overall seed in the country that year. No NCAA tournament. So we will also talk more basketball, women's basketball, as South Carolina left yesterday for Sacramento, the capital of the Golden Bear State, where they will face Oklahoma in a rematch. That was South Carolina's only loss in SEC regular season play. All right. Today's show is brought to you by mybookie.ag. Now, I was just in Las Vegas for 5 days. I spent a lot of time in the sports book at Caesars, but also on my phone checking out the point spread, placing a few bets on mybookie.ag, where you win some, you lose some. The buzzer beaters, very tight point spreads. I definitely took South Carolina and gave the points against Southern Cal. I think that spread was about 18 or 18 and a half. South Carolina cruised. They led by 50 until late in the game when they just absolutely cleared the bench. But the madness is still going on. While many of you, your brackets may be busted, it's not too late. I know a lot of people this year, they just filled out a bracket for fun. Most people filled out brackets just for playing time or for bragging rights. But my bookie is giving away $100,000 in their March Madness contest. That's right. And to celebrate 100,000 followers on Instagram, they're giving away another $10,000 in prizes. So it just isn't about picking a bracket or picking winners. Okay. A lot of people may have thrown their brackets away, wadded them up, and thrown them in the trash. But you can turn your basketball knowledge into a bankroll at mybookie.ag. Be in it to win it. Head to mybookie.ag. Just use the promo code. Get your first bet covered up to $500. If it misses, activate your bet back bonus token and you can run it back. The madness only comes once a year. With the Sweet 16 for men and women, there's still plenty of time to cash in and be a winner and bankroll your basketball knowledge. Head to mybookie.ag. Don't just watch the madness. Win it only at mybookie.ag. And with that, we welcome into the program our good friend from the state paper and Go Gamecocks, Jordan Kaye. Jordan, how's your bracket looking?
Not too good, but I got all my Final Four teams still in, so we're good.
Ooh, so you did not have the Gators advancing to the Final Four.
I got Houston winning it all. So
ooh, the Cougs.
Yeah, that's kind of my only shot right now. They got to win it all.
Kelvin Sampson, more steady than a few good men on a Sunday afternoon.
Exactly.
All right. So I've been in Las Vegas. I was at Caesars. I was at the sports book watching March Madness there as Jordan cleans off his screen real quick. But an eventful week over the past week for Gamecock athletics. Let's start with, was it a firing or retirement or a modified buyout? Any way you slice it, Paul Mainieri is out, not even midway into his second season at South Carolina on Saturday after a 22-6 shellacking by Arkansas. Donati and Mainieri decided it best he step away from the program and retire. How did we get here, and your thoughts on South Carolina baseball and now Monty Lee stepping back in as the interim head coach?
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of many, if any, college baseball coaches that have been fired in March for like an on-field reason. I mean, this is pretty unprecedented, especially in the SEC. But I just think it got to the point where it was too embarrassing, and there were no signs that anything was going to get better. And the kind of something had to be done. I mean, to lose to Arkansas, the 22-6, fine, whatever. But to do that after also losing to Northern Kentucky and the Citadel and Charlotte and Army and yada, 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 like it just got to the point where it was like, okay, this isn't getting turned around. And so, I do think it was like a true parting of ways that probably would have been a firing a week later if it lasted that long. So, we'll see once those numbers come out, like what the buyout ends up being. I think that'll tell us a lot. Mainieri, if he was technically fired, would have been owed over $4.15 million. If he truly stepped away, would have been owed nothing. So I think we're going to see with that buyout. My guess is it's somewhere in the middle, or perhaps it's a lump sum that they just pay right away, a smaller number. We'll see, but I'm curious about that. I think that'll tell you a lot.
No doubt. I mean, maybe he just gets his full year's salary and that's it. I don't know what it'll be. All right. As I said in the open, pitching coach Terry Rooney now becomes Sam Weinberg from A Few Good Men. I basically have no responsibilities here whatsoever. Talk about the movement within the staff since Monty Lee has taken over as interim head coach.
Yeah, I mean, they brought in Chris Gordon to more of an on-field role. He was kind of an off-field guy, and it sounds like, with John Whittle and other people's reporting that'll be more of a pitching job that he'll be working closely with Terry Rooney. And then bringing back Stewart Lake out of the booth, a former longtime assistant coach under Ray Tanner, was the color commentator for the last couple of years and is now gonna have a role on the staff and kind of beefing up the assistant coaching staff, which was pretty thin to begin with. So, it's kind of unclear exactly what roles everyone's doing, but there are more people now to assume those roles. So it's interesting.
I thought it made sense simply because there are 32 games left in the season. You want a full staff.
Yeah.
So they were automatically down one man with Mainieri. Then you elevate Monty Lee. You reshuffle responsibilities with Chris Gordon, Terry Rooney, etc. And I think Stewart Lake still has a lot to give. So that was interesting. It's not even April yet. So we're going to go through this last week of March, through April into May. The College World Series and really the NCAA tournament doesn't even get started until after Memorial Day. What do you think is the timeline on hiring the next head coach at South Carolina?
I mean, it'll be during or after the tournament. Like, I don't think, I'm sure Jeremiah Donati's getting a lay of the land these next couple weeks and months, but it's not like he can make a ton of actual moves right now, because all the people he probably wants to hire are going to be in the NCAA tournament, super regionals, perhaps even in Omaha. So, this could be a longer process, especially, if they get dead set on someone like a Kevin Schnall at Coastal and they end up, getting to the College World Series. I mean, this could be something that drags on into June. If you're South Carolina, you wouldn't love that to be the case, but, it's kind of the position you're in. And you look at a football comparison. Penn State fired their coach, basically earlier than anyone else. and they were one of the last to get a guy. So this is not a sort of thing where, hey, you're first in line. That means you're served first. You're served first in line, and you're going to just wait as long as anyone else. So, yeah, I mean, they can perhaps get a lay of the land and have a good idea of what comes about, but it's going to be hard to, have interviews or actually talk with candidates for the next couple months.
Hopefully, Jimmy Sexton is not Paul Mainieri's agent. I think that's what kind of took Penn State so long to get their guy. It is interesting. You mentioned Kevin Schnall at Coastal Carolina, obviously head coach in waiting there. His last year as an assistant, they go to the College World Series. His first year as head coach, they go to the College World Series, and they go to the Championship Series in the first game where he got run by an official with the temperament of a 5-year-old, in my opinion. When the stakes are that high and in a game that big, you can't run a guy that early unless he really made it personal, which it did not appear that he did. So our good friend John Whittle, who is the dean of Gamecock Baseball coverage, he's been covering this team longer than anybody. He has put together a list. I did want to ask you about some of the names. So obviously, I don't think it will be Monty Lee, but if he goes like 22-10 in these final 32 games, I think he would have to merit consideration. A couple of interesting names. Nolan Cain, who is Jim Schlossnagel's associate head coach, both at Texas A&M and at Texas. He was a pitcher for Paul Mainieri at LSU. I mean, that right there on the surface would seem probably not a candidate, but then when you consider how long he has been with Schlossnagel, you consider the relationship with Del Conte, the athletic director who was at TCU, who was the athletic director who hired Jim Schlossnagel at TCU. The two are longtime friends. And then you consider the Chris Del Conte, Jeremiah Donati relationship. I think Cain could be a very interesting choice. He pitched at LSU, coached there for 4 years with Paul Mainieri. Then he's been with Schlossnagel at Texas A&M and now at Texas. 8 of 10 years he's been recruiting coordinator. He's put together top 10 classes. Obviously on College World Series teams. And as a guy that has a lot of experience, what do you think about Nolan Cain?
Yeah, it seems like his resume checks out, and I think kind of with Josh Elander at Tennessee having got the full-time gig, I think that moves Cain into the most coveted assistant role. It's interesting. I'd be interested to know if like Jeremiah Donati would want an assistant at this point, or if he's dead set on saying, hey, like, this is South Carolina baseball. Like, we're going to go hire someone with experience as a head coach who understands the NIL landscape and can go win right away. Maybe that's Cain and he just hasn't got his opportunity, but I tend to think that it's probably going to come from a former head coach or a current head coach. Sorry.
All right. So somebody with some head coaching experience and ties to South Carolina, Justin Parker, pitching coach at Mississippi State. He was the interim head coach there last year after they parted ways with Chris Lamonis. He went 9-1 down the stretch, got Mississippi State in the NCAA tournament where they eventually fell in the regional final to number 7 national seed Florida State. But it appeared he was on the verge of getting that job, and then they wind up hiring one of the top coaches in the country. I think they're like 20-4. They're ranked in the top 10 in the country. His pitching staff, one of the best in the country, and honestly probably has one of the best reputations in the country. Your thoughts on Justin Parker?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting hire. But again, I think it's probably going to be someone who, my guess is that it would be someone who is a head coach right now. But certainly Parker, like you mentioned, has at least experienced being a head coach in the SEC, has proven he can win in the SEC, get his team into the NCAA tournament, and then right now is succeeding as a pitching coach in the SEC. So, you know, if that's one of your options, perhaps down the list, I think that's a pretty good way to go.
All right, so we mentioned Kevin Schnall, who I do think will be one of the top candidates. Last time, one of the guys under consideration, Tom Walter, or maybe Tim Walter at Wake Forest.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised there wasn't more interest, or that he wasn't the head coach 2 years ago. I thought for sure Tom Walter was the guy who you could talk yourself into succeeding at South Carolina. I mean, you go to Wake Forest, like, it's a hard place to win in anything. Like, they have like 5,500 students. The academic standards are incredibly high, and he's basically built that program, done a lot of innovative things. If you go see their like pitching lab at Wake Forest, I mean, it's cutting edge, top of the line stuff. He's always had great pitching. And I think I could imagine he wanted to get out or have a bigger opportunity. So yeah, I was kind of surprised Tom Walter wasn't a choice a couple of years ago. So if that's the way they go, I think that'd be a home run.
All right, so Landon Powell, who has won big at North Greenville, a guy that honestly probably should shoot to the top of the list simply because Ray Tanner would not hire him. A former Gamecock, great catcher, played professional baseball, done well at North Greenville. What are your thoughts on Landon Powell?
I just don't see it. I think if it was going to happen, it would have happened under Ray Tanner. I think if you kind of just take it at face value, Jeremiah Donati probably doesn't know who Landon Powell is or doesn't know the history of Landon Powell. And when you boil it down to, is Jeremiah Donati going to hire the North Greenville head coach? The answer is no. So I don't think that's going to happen, but certainly I understand why his name is getting floated. And I think that's probably one of those things where if Landon Powell goes and gets it goes and gets some job, some mid-major job, and then succeeds there, then maybe it's like, I feel like there's got to be one more job in between South Carolina and North Greenville.
And so last name, I wanted to talk about a name that really makes sense to me. Kirk Saarloos, who is the current baseball coach at TCU. When Jim Schlossnagle left TCU for Texas A&M, Jeremiah Donati promoted Saarloos to head coach there. He has been successful. They've been to the College World Series. Not as successful as his predecessor, but I think a damn good baseball coach. What are your thoughts on Kirk Saarloos?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know a ton about him. I'm going to be honest, but just the TCU connection with Donati makes sense. And, I think you would have to go and look at his contract and see his buyout and a couple other things that would kind of be predetermining things of like, hey, would this even be a possibility? But certainly I think Jeremiah Donati is probably going to give it some thought of saying like, hey, this guy, he really liked him at one point to hire him. And then he's done a pretty good job at TCU following in Schlossnagel's footsteps. Maybe that's a guy Donati feels like, hey, he could succeed with better resources and having an SEC, footprint. But, I think there's other things I don't know. And I don't know enough about him to be like, oh, yeah, that's a guy, of course, would do well at South Carolina. But certainly interesting. And I think we're probably going to do this for the next, 4 years of every time there's an opening, we're going to go look at the TCU coach and say, you got to think about it. Could Donati hire the TCU person? So granted, he's only really done it with Kendall Briles. But I guess it just kind of feels like it's happened more in the last couple of years, but it hasn't. I don't know who the heck's, if their basketball coach, if Lamont Paris gets fired, we're going to write, could he go with Jamie Dixon? Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Dixon is a TCU grad, and he's coming up on retirement age.
Certainly.
But
he'll get on those lists.
A great segue into men's basketball. Also, right as before we went on the air, LSU is bringing back Will Wade because now cheating is legal. Pay for play, and so NC State's open now. North Carolina's open. I can't remember the last time those two jobs were open at the same time. I thought South Carolina should have cut the cord on Paris and hired my guy, Chris Mack. He is leaving the College of Charleston to go to USF. So there's still hope for Chris Mack. Maybe. All right. So Lamont Paris is coming back. Despite the fact in 3 of 4 years, he's gone 10-44 in the SEC. He did go 13-5 though, and win 26 games in 23-24. Currently sitting at 72-68, but just 23-49 in SEC play in 3 of 4 years. He's averaged 20 losses per season. It was announced earlier, assistant coach Eddie Shannon is gone. And so burning questions remain around men's basketball. And the first is, how much more staff turnover do you anticipate? And is there going to be a general manager? And if so, who does the general manager report to, Lamont Paris or Jeremiah Donati?
I do think that there will be, another assistant gone. I don't know what that'll look like. I will say that a lot of the assistant coaches all have contracts that run through March 31st. So if you're kind of wondering, hey, why wouldn't they just fire him now? Well, you probably still want some help doing scouting and other things. So you're probably going to get your money's worth and say, work for the next week. So I think that might be a reason that you haven't seen anything with that. But yeah, I'd anticipate probably at least one more assistant move. And then, I do think they're going to hire a front office type person. I don't know if they're going to call it a general manager. I also don't know exactly. That's a good question of will they report to Lamont Paris or Jeremiah Donati? That's a great question. I think that'll probably be the first thing we ask whoever the heck it is. And I think that's probably like, I think it'll be someone with like NBA experience or very out of the box, like an out of the box type person. I don't think it's going to be like it's not going to be like College of Charleston's GM. I don't think that's what they're going to do. I think it'll be, hey, this was an NBA scout, or this person, I don't know, was some G League something. I don't know. But like I could see it being like a professional type person who comes in as the GM. I mean, they don't really call anything on campus now that I'm thinking about it, like really the GM. So maybe they don't want to do that. I don't know. But yeah, I'd anticipate that's kind of what it looks like. And then that person is going to have to come in and basically flip the entire roster.
All right. So still remaining, Will Bailey, Tanner Bronson, and Kerry Rich. By all accounts I'm hearing, it appears Tanner Bronson will be retained unless he goes to the NABC convention at the Final Four and is able to get another job. But I think there's going to be at least 2 more hirings. I think you've got to hire a recruiter, an assistant coach that is a shark, somebody that can operate in the shark-infested waters that is the SEC and get players. And then I think that other guy needs to be somebody that's been a head coach in the NIL era, that has an extensive background as an assistant coach and a head coach and understands how to operate in the age of NIL and pay for play. Plus, a former head coach, I think, is somebody that Lamont Paris could lean on for his experience, because Paris, whatever he's been doing outside of 1 year, which seems to be the outlier, has not been getting it done in the Southeastern Conference.
Yeah, that's a good. I think you're right on a lot of those things. I guess the only thing I would wonder is, like, how many people have been a head coach in the NIL era and would be willing to be an assistant at South Carolina? I don't know the answer. I mean, I'm sure it's a pretty small list, but you would have to. I'm sure you could find someone, or at least someone who's been a head coach, right leading up to that point.
So let me give you my choice for that.
Okay, let's hear it. Yeah, please.
Rod Terry. That's my guy. He was all the way back in the day with Jerry Wainwright at UNC Wilmington, went with Rick Barnes to Texas, became a head coach, rejoined at UTEP, did not work out, rejoined Rick Barnes at Tennessee, then was assistant head coach at Texas with Chris Beard. Beard was fired, and he became the head coach at Texas. They decided to hire Sean Miller last year. There's not a better guy or a better recruiter, and a guy that has operated in the NIL space than Rod Terry, and a guy that understands the Southeastern Conference. To me, I'm doing whatever I can to get that guy.
That is a great name. Yeah, I think that's perfect. If you can get him, you go get him. I was just looking him up. He just called the South Carolina Ole Miss game on March 9th.
How about
Got
that?
a little familiarity. Yeah, wow. You get him. That's fantastic. I don't know. I guess you would have to ask yourself, would he want to give up being an ESPN commentator to come back to be an assistant at South Carolina? Maybe. I don't know.
You got to make it worth his while, and he could be the next head coach if it doesn't work out.
That's fair.
With Paris. All right. So quickly, spring football is past the halfway point with spring practice. What are your thoughts overall from what you've been able to see? How does the team look physically? And then just what have you heard from the players and assistant coaches about this Kendall Briles offense? I know everybody wants to talk about that, but I'm really intrigued by this South Carolina defense because of the returning talent and the talent acquisition in the transfer portal. Yeah,
I mean, we haven't gotten to watch really much practice at all, but from everyone talking, I think it seems like a very good fit right now with Kendall Briles, and especially the development of Lenora Sellers. But granted, we heard that same thing about Mike Shula this time last year, so I try not to put too much stock into what people are saying in March. Certainly, it all seems good. And you're right, they brought in a lot of newcomers who should help. So kind of still something to monitor. And I think at this point in the year, it's probably smart not to take everything at face value.
So what's the latest you're hearing on Dylan Stewart?
Yeah, it just seems like, I know that back injury was a lot more of a factor than I think we realized last year, and was really hampering him towards the back end of the season, really causing him a lot of pain. And he kind of willed himself to play against Ole Miss, and then I think missed that Coastal game, and then played like half of the Clemson game. And it seems like right now they're like they're trying everything to not have surgery. Is kind of the way Shane Beamer kind of made it sound, is, hey, we're just going to let it rest and kind of hope that it gets better, and hopefully don't have to get surgery, is the way, Shane Beamer kind of made it sound. But it's certainly not what you want to hear about Dylan Stewart heading into his junior year. You want, hey, he's out on the practice field looking good. Does Dylan Stewart need to go through spring practice? Absolutely not. But you're just hoping that it doesn't linger into something that stays throughout the summer and into the fall.
All right, last question. Travian Robertson met with the media, I think earlier this week. Just what were your big takeaways from that? Great. I mean, I've covered him since his high school announcement. At his high school. But then the accident, the long road back, just what were maybe a couple takeaways from the Travian Robertson press conference?
Yeah, I mean, just an awesome guy who's had to work his tail off to just get back healthy and walking again. So, I mean, it was really cool to kind of hear about his process of doing that. And then also, like, it's kind of put in this really hard mental spot of, hey, you end up in the hospital and the person who did this to you is died. So it's like you're feeling probably very odd about that. But then also I could imagine there's a lot of anger towards that person because they were the one that, caused you to be in the hospital. And, I think he did a really good job of kind of explaining like his thoughts on forgiveness, and that he's not going to forgive with hate. And I thought that was really kind of the most inspiring part of it all, of saying like, hey, I got to just forgive and get on with my life and say, what am I got to do today to get on the road to recovery? And basically said, like, if I didn't forgive, like, there's no way I'm standing here. I wouldn't have got through all this. And so I thought that was really cool because along with the physical toll, I could imagine the mental part was really hard, of just knowing that the person who did this is, you can't even, how do you be mad at that person? And does that even do anything good for you? So I thought that was really, really cool. And I think when you talk about things that his players will look at and hopefully draw inspiration from, I think more than the physical, I think that's a very good life lesson.
No doubt. And this year, South Carolina should have the deepest and perhaps most talented defensive tackle group they've had, certainly numbers-wise, and newcomers and transfers making a lot of noise out there. So good stuff, Jordan. Give us your Final Four picks real quick.
Who do I have? I got Houston, Michigan, St. John's, and Arkansas. It's out there.
Calipari and Rick Pitino in the Final Four.
Yeah, I got to go back and look. I can't remember if I actually put St. John's in there, if I changed it. That one I was going back and forth on until the last minute. But I'm an ASU grad, so I'll never put Arizona in the Final Four. So I saw that. I was like, oh, I gotta find someone they're gonna lose to. And I was like, Darius Acuff could do it tonight. So that was my prediction. That's more of a spite pick than a logical one. But
no doubt. Well, Rick Pitino still getting it done, still looking dapper
incredible
on the sidelines. And the way Arkansas is playing with under Calipari, they got a real shot, I think.
Yeah. I think Acuff is kind of on that Kemba Walker 2011 run. I mean, I could believe anything that they do this tournament. So that'll be a fun game tonight. Heck, all of them, all the games tonight are awesome.
Should be. All right, Jordan, thanks for being so gracious with your time, and I always enjoy having you on. Yep.
Appreciate you. Have a good one.
You too. All right, that was Jordan Kaye from Go Gamecocks and the State. So South Carolina gets the rematch with Oklahoma 5:00 on Saturday in Sacramento. The Final Four is in Phoenix. South Carolina will face the winner of TCU and Virginia. That would be on Monday. All right, so here's my problem. All right, so UConn, who South Carolina, if they advance to the Final Four, in all likelihood, that's who they're going to face. They take on North Carolina Friday at 4:00. Okay. And UCLA, they also play on Friday. So that's the 1 and the 2 seed. They play on Friday, Sunday. And the 3 and 4 seed, they play on Saturday, Monday. And so both Texas and South Carolina are going to be at a disadvantage. I thought after Dawn Staley raised Cain about that the last time it happened, that they were going to make it equitable to where the 1 and 4 regionals would both play on the same days, and 2 versus 3 regionals would play on the same day. So there's no advantage, but now they're giving the top 2 seeds an extra day of rest. And I don't think you ever see that on the men's side of the bracket. And so I really have a problem with that. Now, if I am South Carolina, I'm probably not coming home. I'm just going straight to Phoenix because you don't want to be on West Coast time, fly all the way back across the country for 2 days, and then go back to Phoenix. And so I'm interested to see the schedule on that. I'm also interested to see what the beat writers asked Dawn Staley about that at the media availability tomorrow, since the games are on Saturday. South Carolina and Texas. Texas faces Kentucky at 2 p.m. on ABC. South Carolina at 3 p.m. Eastern. South Carolina and Oklahoma at 5 p.m. Eastern. South Carolina a 17.5 point favorite in that one. Texas a 14.5 point favorite. And then TCU and Virginia, they also will play, and it's all chalk in Texas Regional. Well, the 4 seed lost. Michigan and Louisville, 2 versus 3. That game is 12:30 Eastern. Michigan a 4.5 point favorite. Texas plays the winner of that one. South Carolina plays the winner of TCU and Virginia. Virginia, the 10 seed, beat Iowa, the 2 seed, at Iowa in overtime. And in the ACC area or era after Caitlin Clark, Iowa, a 2 seed, goes down to the 10 seed. Now, Friday, UConn is a 27.5 point favorite over North Carolina. Vanderbilt in the 2 versus 6. Notre Dame and Hannah Hidalgo moving on. Vanderbilt a 5.5 point favorite. I kind of like Notre Dame in that one. UCLA faces Minnesota. They're an 18.5 point favorite. And then the battle of what should have been 2 seeds, LSU and Duke. UCLA will take on the winner of that game in all likelihood. LSU is an 8.5 point favorite. That one is tomorrow night at 9 p.m. So South Carolina beats Southern Cal 101-61. 6 players in double figures for the Gamecocks, who jumped all over Southern Cal in this one. It was 26-8. Southern Cal kind of made a little mini run. I think it was 31-15. South Carolina went on a 16-0 run. They end the half up by 30, 51-21, and up 27-17 in the third quarter. They were up by 40 and were up by 50 until they emptied the bench, and I think London Jones hit like 3 threes. She was 5 for 6 for the game from 3, but most of them late in the fourth quarter, they were able to get it down to 40. Joyce Edwards leading the way, 6 players in double figures, 26 points, 8 for 12 from the field, 7 of 10 from the free throw line, a double-double for her, 10 rebounds. Medina Okot, she had a double-double in the first half, 10 points, 11 rebounds. She finished with 15 points and 15 rebounds. Agot McKeer off the bench, continuing to make an impact. 15 points, 6 of 11 from the field, 0 of 1 from 3, 3 of 3 from the free throw line, 3 assists, just 1 turnover, 15 points for her in 26 minutes. Medina Okot just played 22 minutes. Tanaya Latson with 12 points on 6 of 12 from the field, 5 assists, 4 steals, and 5 turnovers from her. And Miriam Dowda off the bench, 10 points in 14 minutes, 2 of 3 from the field, 6 of 6 from the free throw line. Tessa Johnson, 10 points, 2 of 4 from 3, 4 of 10 from the field. Tessa continues to just smoke layups. I think she missed 3 layups in that game. That's got to change as South Carolina moves on. Raven Johnson hits 1,000 points with 7 points, 3 of 9 from the field, 1 of 3 from downtown, but really did a magnificent defensive job on Jazzy Davidson in that one. And then Allie Turnaby's 6 points on 3 of 5 from the field. I thought she looked good. Maddie Mouse only played a couple of minutes in the first half. She was still under the weather. South Carolina needs her. And they certainly need Turnaby's and Agot McKeer to be strong off the bench, as well as Miriam Dowda in 14 minutes, 10 points for her. All right, so that's going to do it. And we'll close out the show from Lindsay Gottlieb, the head coach, women's coach at Southern Cal, who was back at South Carolina in her previous head coaching job, I think at Colorado. She was in a regional there in the 8-9 game as well. And so here's what she said about South Carolina's sustained excellence. And so let me just go over this with you. Since the 2019-2020 season, this is what South Carolina women's basketball has done. We know 2015, Asia Wilson, Final Four, 2017, a national championship, Sweet 16 and Elite 8, those other 2 years. 2019, 2020, that was the freshman year for the freshies. No NCAA tournament. South Carolina 33-1, 16-0 in the SEC. They won the regular season and the tournament. They were the number 1 overall national seed, and COVID canceled that tournament. The following year, 26-5, 14-2, SEC regular season and tournament champs. They lost in San Antonio and still like somewhat of a COVID environment, 66-65 when Bree Beal missed a layup and Aaliyah Boston's follow at the buzzer hit the back of the rim and came out. The following year, 2021-2022, South Carolina 36-2, SEC regular season champs. They lost to Missouri to open SEC play, lost in the SEC tournament final to Kentucky, and then won the national championship. The following year, 22-23, they were 36-0. They played Iowa in Dallas. To this day, the officials let Iowa get away with absolute murder in that game, taking Aaliyah Boston out of it, letting Caitlin Clark do whatever she wanted to do. South Carolina loses in the Final Four and finished 36-1. 23-24, South Carolina goes with a perfecto, 38-0. SEC regular season, tournament, and national champions. Dawn Staley's third. Last year, 24-25, they were 35-4. again winning the SEC regular season and the tournament, finishing as national runner-up. This season, Gamecocks are 33-3 headed into that Oklahoma game on Saturday. We'll close the show with Lindsay Gottlieb's words on South Carolina. She said, people look at South Carolina and see talent, elite players, big moments, top-level performances. But from my perspective, as a coach and an opponent, it's more than that. The team isn't just talented. It's built with a clear purpose. There's leadership. There's structure. There's a system that works efficiently, possession by possession. And that comes from the head coach. Dawn Staley just doesn't coach talent. She elevates it. Then summed it up in 15 words to describe Dawn Staley's leadership. She builds disciplined champions, demands excellence daily, and turns talent into unstoppable, unified greatness. Those are the words of Lindsay Gottlieb. I will add the Naismith National Defensive Player of the Year finalist and National Coach of the Year finalist did not include Raven Johnson nor Dawn Staley. I find that to be heresy. I mean, folks, South Carolina is down 2 starters from the jump. Okay. There's not a team in the nation that would be going back to the Final Four minus Chloe Kitts and Ashlyn Watkins. That's just a fact. And yet Dawn Staley not in the finalists with 4 new starters on this year's team. And depending on 3 freshmen, one of which enrolled in January. And Raven Johnson, the SEC Defensive Player of the Year, and not one of 4 finalists when you play in the toughest league in the country. I just find that as heresy. And in the words of Forrest Gump, that's all I've got to say about that. Thanks for tuning in and live on YouTube. Thanks to special guest Jordan Kaye on today's program, mybookie.ag, and our always sponsor here on Gamecock Pod Live, Nana's Porch, the award-winning full-service catering company servicing the greater Charlotte area. Nana's Porch is your go-to for all your catering needs. You can go to the homepage, nanasporch.com, NANASPORCH.com. Get in touch with my good friend Chris Payne. Tell him the good folks at Gamecock Pod Live sent you. You will love it. I guarantee it. We will be back next week. We were going to have the show yesterday, but everybody was out at football practice, and the women's basketball beat writers were on their way to California as well. So hopefully we'll be back on Wednesday next week. I haven't checked the football schedule, but thanks for tuning in live on YouTube, listening on Spotify, Apple Podcast, on the Believe Network, and to all of our Gamecock Pod annual and monthly subscribers as well. I'm Keith Allsep. This has been episode number 1974. Back from vacation. It is Gamecock Pod Live for March the 26th. Go Gamecocks. God bless all of you, and God protect our troops. I am out of here.